Welcome to the Farm and Home Show. I'm Kristin Hildabrand, your host, and visiting with us today is Dr. Cindy Finneseth. She's our Extension Specialist for Community Horticulture. You also are working on a research trial through UK, and you're actually growing several perennial flowers. Is that correct?
Yes. So we're looking at about 50 different species of perennials that are native to Kentucky. So, to see what kind of cut flower potential they have. And there are a lot of great reasons to look at perennials. You make that one-time investment, but you have many years that you can harvest. Also, since these are natives, we would anticipate that they're fairly low input. So probably don't require as much water as annuals will, probably more disease and pest resistant, and then also, cold hardy and also probably low fertility. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in the trial, not just the attractiveness of the flower, but also some of the growth habit and other characteristics as far as if these are going to be good plants that maybe we want to recommend to cut flower growers.
How did you get some of these flowers that you selected for the trial?
It's pretty subjective, right? Like, what do people think are attractive? So a lot of them were ones that, are used pretty frequently in the landscape. So like cone flowers, that's something that's probably familiar to a lot of the listeners. And so a lot of those then we think will make good cut flowers, but we want to look at some different characteristics and particularly post-harvest, how they perform after they're out of the landscape. So different types of cone flowers, purple cone flowers, yellow cone flowers, orange cone flowers. So that's one that people are probably familiar with. And also because they're pretty easy to grow, and people are familiar with them. They're very attractive. They're very hardy. But then some other things like blazing star. There are different species of blazing star that we're looking at. And again, probably some viewers are familiar with that one. False indigo is another one that's a very attractive spike type flower. It comes in different colors, well suited to our conditions. The mountain mints, they're just a lot of natives. And this was a collective, you had some input, some of our other colleagues had inputs of like, hey, I think we should include this in the trial. So some were plants that I had never grown before. So, that's exciting to try some new things out. And some are ones that, I've just used in the landscape. And so, thinking that maybe there's some commercial potential there.
How often do you all evaluate the cut flowers? How does that look?
So the first data point was mortality. So these were planted last fall, the majority of them. And so looking to see how did they perform over the winter. And so, did they persist and how do they look and when do they start growing? So it's been approximately weekly data collection, and it's different things each time, but definitely looking at that mortality survivability, because once you make that investment, you want it to be long-term. But then also looking at some things like, when do they start to flower? Because for each of the different species that can be very different. Also, like, are they going to require staking? And so like once they get to a certain size, do they lodge or are they nice and upright with strong stems? And then also how many flowers per plant. So looking sort of at a yield standpoint. And then also like each time, looking at, sort of that susceptibility to pests and diseases. And so that's one of the most consistent rating is like how, do they look from, sort of a marketability standpoint? Is there damage on there? Do they look nice? So those are some of the parameters that we're looking at. And some are on a weekly basis, some are, less frequent than that. So it kind of depends on what the characteristic is that we're identifying.
And you all also have an opportunity coming up later this month. So that way, if people are interested, they can actually see the perennial cut flowers in action. Is that right?
Absolutely. We have a twilight tour coming up at the Horticulture Research Farm in Lexington, Kentucky. It's on the corner of Nicholasville and Manowar, and it's July 22nd, so Tuesday, and it's from 6 to 8 p.m. So it's our twilight tour, and anyone is invited to come. We do ask that they register so that we know kind of how many people to expect and how many wagons we need, how many different tours, that sort of thing. And it's not just cut flowers, but that will be the part I'm responsible for, is the different cut flower trials that we're doing. But there'll be other things that may be of interest to the viewers as well, on small fruits or on vegetables and that sort of things, asking questions, seeing the kind of research we're doing at the university.
And if you want more details or more information on how to get registered for the Twilight Tour coming up July 22nd, make sure to contact us here. Thanks for watching the Farm and Home Show. We hope to see you again next time.